in our Heart for the House season, which if you're new to home church, this is our annual generosity campaign. And we spend about 3 weeks talking about what God has done over the history of our church and what he's going to do in 2026. We share some different initiatives, some different things that we believe that God is calling us into for the next year. And our theme for this year is all the feels. Someone turn to your neighbor and say, all the feels. All the feels, all the feels. Feels good, doesn't it? Our theme for this year is all the feels, and what we're going to be talking about over the next 3 weeks are 3 different emotions. The emotions of anger, the emotion of compassion, and the emotion of joy. And the reason that we're going to be talking about these 3 different emotions over the next few weeks is because of this, that we see that godly emotions lead to godly actions. That godly emotions lead to godly actions. And when we have godly emotions, when our anger and our compassion and our joy is filtered through the lens of the gospel, it leads us to act in a way that God would be pleased with, that would honor him. But the inverse of this is also true. The reason we want to talk about our emotions over the next 3 weeks is because we also know that ungodly emotions lead to sin. That where godly emotions lead to godly actions, ungodly emotions lead to sin. And this is an idea that we see all throughout the scriptures, right? If you look at the life of Moses, you have godly emotion that leads him to confront Pharaoh and to fight for the people of Israel, to set them free, to sing to Pharaoh the song of Pharaoh, Pharaoh, oh, baby, let my people go. I saw someone do the dance move that hit that. Oh, I love it. It's so good, right? But at the same time, we see ungodly emotion with Pharaoh, cause him to strike a rock that God never told him to prohibit him from the promised land. We see him murder a person in anger because his emotions weren't run through the proper filters. We see this in the life of David, that David's emotions lead him to be a man after God's own heart. Godly emotions take him there. But that ungodly emotions leave him on a rooftop and cause him to have an affair and also to murder a man. We see this in the life of Peter, that Peter's godly emotions would lead him to boldly preach the good news of the gospel at Pentecost, and thousands of people would come to faith. And then yet we see ungodly emotions in Peter lead him to cut a man's ear off and to deny Jesus in fear. And so if this is true of the scriptures, that means it's also true of us. That our godly emotions will lead us to fight for the things that God cares about, but ungodly emotions will lead us to fight one another. You see, our emotions will determine our actions. And so we want to make sure that we're looking at them through the right filters. And so over the next 3 weeks, we're going to be talking about the emotions of anger, of compassion, and of joy. And today we're going to start with anger. Now, a couple of house rules before we jump in. If you are new to home church, there's 2 things that I'm going to ask from you. As we're in the scriptures together, if the Holy Spirit speaks to you and it's good, you can just give me a... Okay, that wasn't good. The Holy Spirit speaks to you and it's good, you can say... I love it, I love it. And if you don't know what to say, you can give me a little Christian moo. It sounds like this. Have you ever done anything stupid when you were angry? Anyone? I was thinking about this, and it took me back to 7th grade, which you were like, that was the last time you did something stupid when you were angry? No, but it's the worst one, right? 7th grade, I remember there was this girl named Tiffany that I was interested in. We were kind of talking. She was flirting with me. I was flirting back. We had a little thing going on. It was good. And the weekend goes by, and I'm expecting to see her on Monday, but what I didn't realize was that over the weekend, Tiffany was going to be going and hanging out with another boy named Rico. And at the end of the weekend, Tiffany and Rico were now boyfriend and girlfriend, which was confusing because Tiffany and I had been texting, we'd been flirting, we had a thing going on. So how in the world did you end up with Rico over the weekend? I was not okay with it. I show up at school on Monday, and I find out that her and Rico are an item now, and I am frustrated. Like, I am angry. I'm big mad, And so I start plotting. What am I going to do? Well, all of us were in chorus together, and on Fridays, our chorus teacher would select a couple of students who would get to sing whatever song that they wanted to the class. And the timing just happened to work out that I was the one singing that week. So I started going through my albums, these ancient devices called CDs. I was going through those. And there was a CD in my room by an artist named Usher from the Confessions album, who had a song called If I Want To. I started listening to that song, preparing for Friday. I get into class, I walk into the room, the teacher goes, hey, Gerald, you're up. I stand in front of the class, the track starts, and I begin to sing. Tiffany's sitting right there. If I wanted, I could take you from your man. Please believe, with my eyes closed, I could have you eating out the palm of my hand. Next line, and all your little girlfriends too. Tiffany's face turns bloodshot red. I can see the anger now building up in her. Class ends, she finds Rico. Rico gets upset. Rico then calls his boys. They're all looking for me for the rest of the day, trying to jump me in the hallway. Principal finds out, pulls both of us into the office, calls our parents. Our parents show up. Our parents get mad at us. I go home, get spanked and grounded. And I was thinking about that sequence of events because what's interesting is that something happened over the weekend with Tiffany and Rico that made me angry. And that anger caused me to act, led me to respond. I was hurt, I got angry, I retaliated. I got hurt, was angry, I retaliated. And what's interesting is that it didn't stop with me, did it? Because I got hurt, I was angry, and I retaliated against Tiffany by singing the song, but then she got hurt by me singing, and she got angry and told Rico, and retaliated by telling Rico, and Rico was hurt, and then he got angry and retaliated by getting his guys to want to jump me. And this cycle of anger just began, where someone gets hurt, and then they get angry, and they look for whatever chance they can find to retaliate. This is the story of human anger. It's the way that it works, right? If someone hurts you, someone says something they shouldn't have said, they act in a way they shouldn't have acted, they take advantage of you, they lie to you, they take from you, spread a rumor about you, mistreat you, gossip about you, someone hurts you, and it creates this emotion, this anger in you, this frustration in you, this point of boiling over where you don't know what to do to contain it anymore, and the only thing you know to do is to retaliate, to try to get even. And then it hurts them. And if we're honest, we like that it hurts them because they hurt us. This is why people say hurt people hurt people. But we get hurt, we get angry, and then we retaliate. This is the cycle of human anger, and this is the reason we see fighting and divorce and war and conflict all over our world. And I also think this is the reason that the Apostle Paul wrote what he wrote in Ephesians chapter 4. He says this. He says, "In your anger do not sin, and do not let the sun go down while you are still angry, and do not give the devil a foothold." Because I think what Paul understood is that we have a propensity to want to get even. That when we are hurt and we feel anger, the natural tendency is to want to retaliate, to want to get even, to lead us to sin. And Paul says you got to be careful there because if you're not, the devil gets a foothold. That he has a field day there. That he loves when you're angry because with that emotion, he can lead you to do things and say things and act in ways that you would have never otherwise. Just a side note in the room. It's not where we're going for the message today, but as I was writing, I just felt like it was important to say, for some of you in the room, this is how you feel right now. You're angry. A family member, a friend, coworker, an old boss. There's an anger that's been built up in you, and you've allowed it to fester, and the way that you've responded, the way that you've retaliated is you avoid, or you left, or you disengaged, or you gossiped, or you got angry, and you said and you did some things that you should not have done. And I just want to encourage us this morning, please today, do not let the sun go down on your anger. You don't have to walk out of the room carrying the same anger that you walked into the room carrying. There is an option to let it go. There is an option to forgive. There is an option to call them or talk to them or text them or email them to forgive them. There is an option to deal with your anger in a different way. Because Paul says if you don't, you've given the enemy a foothold. That the devil is having a field day in your heart, in your mind, in your life, creating anxiety and stress and pressure and adding to the anger. And he's going, there is a way that you can just let it go, to deal with it before the sun goes down. But the other thing I want us to see from what Paul says here is so important, is he says, in your anger, do not sin. Now notice, Paul doesn't say don't get angry. He says, in your anger, don't sin. Because for Paul to say don't get angry, he would be asking you to cease to be human. The reality is that God has made us and wired us to feel emotions, and the emotion of anger is a human emotion that we should all feel. So he doesn't say don't get angry, he just says don't sin when you are angry. Meaning that there is a different way you can process your anger. That there's actually a way to leverage your anger for good. That there is a righteous way to be angry. And that's what I want to talk about today. What is a righteous anger? What does it look like? And what is an anger that's acceptable to God. If you have a Bible, we're going to be in Mark chapter 11. Mark chapter 11. We're going to be looking at verses 12 through 25. And we're going to be looking at an interesting moment in the life of Jesus, a moment in the life of Jesus that's actually caused some conflict for some people over the years. As I was studying this week, I read an article about a man who was a follower of Jesus who walked away, ended up denouncing and walking away from the faith. And the reason that he walked away and denounced the faith was because of the passage that we're going to read today. It messed with his mind. It messed with his understanding of who Jesus is and the way that Jesus showed up, but it's because he misinterpreted what was actually happening in the story. So Mark chapter 11, starting in verse 12, I'll have it up on the screens for you as well. It says this. The next day, as they were leaving Bethany, Jesus was hungry. Seeing in the distance a fig tree and leaf, he went to find out if it had any fruit. When he reached it, he found nothing but leaves, because it was not in the season for figs. Then he said to the tree, "May no one ever eat fruit from you again." And his disciples heard him say it. It's interesting. So we have this moment where Jesus has obviously skipped breakfast. He's coming into town the day before. It's Palm Sunday. Everyone's shouting Hosanna. It's this triumphal entry. Everyone's excited. This is the Messiah who's come. He wakes up the next day, doesn't eat breakfast, and he's headed into Jerusalem, into the city. And as he's going into the city, he sees this fig tree. And there's leaves all over the fig tree, and he goes up to the tree, and there's nothing there. And so Jesus responds to this tree and goes, there's no fruit here. And he curses the tree, "May no one ever eat from you again." Now, I love this little detail from Mark. He goes, and the disciples heard him say it. So he wasn't really talking to them, but they were there in earshot. Now, here's what I think. I think Jesus wanted them to hear him say it. Because on the surface, what looks like is happening is that Jesus is going through the process of human anger. That he's hungry and he goes to this tree expecting to be able to eat from it, and when there's no fruit, he's hurt. He's frustrated. He's hangry. And so he yells at the tree, he retaliates. "Nothing ever is going to come from you again." On the surface, it seems like Jesus is hurt, and then he gets angry, and then he retaliates against the tree. And this is the reason that guy ended up walking away from faith, because he's going, wait. If Jesus is God and Jesus is without sin, this is not the way he should respond. This isn't the way he should act. Like, Jesus shouldn't carry this human anger. Well, here's the reality. What's happening in this moment is not what it looks like is happening, because Jesus really is God, and Jesus really is without sin. So then the question is, what is it that's taking place? Well, scholars refer to this section of Scripture as a living parable. It's a living parable. What we call that in 2025 is an object lesson. Anyone grow up in a youth group with a good object lesson? Anyone? Anyone remember, like, hey, let's all go out to the field and burn all our secular music? Anyone? Okay, come on. Anyone remember the last night of camp where they put the cross up and they're like, "Now go nail your sin to the cross"? Anyone? Come on. Anyone remember the Francis Chan illustration with the super long rope and the little red tape at the end? He was like, "Your life is but a mist," right? Like, anyone remember? No? Right? Anyone remember that? Yeah, what Jesus is giving us here is actually an object lesson. It's not that he's actually angry or upset with the tree, it's that he's wanting to prove a bigger point. Because what the tree is supposed to represent in this moment is the religion of Israel. It's the way that he views the religious leaders. It's the frustration that he's had all along the way. I don't know if you know anything about fig trees. I don't, but I learned some at Pike's Nursery yesterday when I bought this. And what I learned about fig trees is that the specific type of fig tree that would have been found in Israel during this time, this day and age, is that there's two ways that a fig tree would grow, but all of these fig trees would have grown the same way. That the fruit would appear first, and then the leaves would come after. And the leaves would come to protect the fruit. Fruit first, leaves second. So if Jesus, hungry, is walking and sees a fig tree covered in leaves, what would he expect to be there? Fruit. But he goes to the tree and there is no fruit. What Jesus is showing his disciples, without them even knowing that they're taking this lesson, is that they are living in a day and age where the religious leaders have the appearance of godliness, but they have no fruit. It looks good from the outside, but it does not satisfy. It will leave you hungry and empty. And Jesus is sick and tired and fed up of the religiosity, of the plain Christian, of the showing up and looking good on the outside, but there's no fruit coming from your life. He goes, this tree is a picture of what Israel looks like right now. and I'm not going for it anymore. You see, the religious leaders of the day, they knew the law, but they did not know the God of the law. The religious leaders of the day, they practiced the rituals, but they did not practice love. The religious leaders of the day gave the appearance of godliness, but on the inside, they were empty. They had religion, but they had no fruit. Now, before we go judging them, can I just ask you this? Where's the fruit in your life? Can other people see it? Can you see it? Is anyone benefiting from the fruit of the Spirit being poured out of your life, of the love, peace, patience, joy, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, and self-control? Is there fruit coming from your life? And this is a question, friends, that we have to ask, because if we don't, we will settle for a Christianity that walks around wearing crosses on our neck but has no kindness. We will fight for Christian education and want to make sure that our kids are in the best Christian schools, but we won't even have a love for the scriptures. We will say we love the Lord, and we will hate people who are made in his image. We will vote for issues and we will not open our homes. We will say the right things and continue to walk in sin. We will have the appearance of godliness and we will have no fruit. And friends, can I let you in on a secret? That makes Jesus angry. He's not pleased with that type of religion. He's not settling for that type of Christianity. He is not tricked by our leaves. He wants to examine our life and find fruit. Let's not go to church and not have fruit. Let's not raise our hands in the songs and not have fruit. Let's not give the appearance of the good, perfect Christian life and be missing the substance of the Christian life. Where is the fruit? And Jesus says, where I see no fruit, there is no point. So you cease to exist to the tree because you're not producing what you were intended, what you were designed, what you were made to produce. You see, this is by no means human anger. This is righteous anger. And it's a righteous anger that is followed by godly action. Now, the reason we can be so confident about this illustration of the fig tree and knowing that this is Jesus making a point for Israel is because of what happens next. Let's look at verse 15. It says this. On reaching Jerusalem, so he's now made it into the city, Jesus entered the temple courts and began driving out those who were buying and selling there. He overturned the tables of the money changers and the benches of those selling doves. So after Jesus has this moment with the fig tree, he shows up in the city and he completely loses his mind. He goes in and he starts flipping tables and he starts driving people out. Another translation or another passage would say that he was using whips, that he would whip over the tables and he would push people out of the temple courts. He's going, this is not the way that it's supposed to be. Now, why is it that Jesus is doing this? Well, you have to understand, Jewish people would worship at the temple regularly. Some people daily for different things, but everyone at least 3 times a year for different pilgrimages that they needed to come and take. And people would have to travel from far distances, and they would bring their animals to sacrifice at the temple. And so this wouldn't have been uncommon that there would be merchants that were there selling the animals that were needed for sacrifice or selling food and drink for people who have traveled a long distance, because it would be hard to travel with the animals that you needed in order to sacrifice on that day. So hear me, the issue was not that there were merchants there selling. That wasn't the problem at all, actually. It was helpful that they were there. They were allowing the people to fulfill their obligations, to fulfill their sacrifices. The issue was not that they were selling. The issue was where they were selling. Notice, Jesus drives them out of the temple courts. I want to show you just a little image of what the temple looked like in those days. And so you have the innermost section, the Holy of Holies. This is only where the priests could go. You have a little section where the men would hang out, a section where the women would hang out. But on the outside, the outer courts, you would have what was known as the court of the Gentiles. This was the place where a Gentile person, a non-Jewish person who wanted to worship the God of Israel could go and worship. And the issue is that these merchants, these Jewish people who were selling in the outer courts, they had picked the place where Gentiles could worship. They had no care for them. They weren't concerned with them. They had no love for them. They had no desire for them to come to know God. They were more concerned with making money than they were these people who were far from God getting a chance to know God. The issue was not that they were selling. The issue is that they were selling in the one place that the Gentile could worship. Hear me. They were standing in the way of someone who is far from God having access to God. And Jesus goes, I'm not having it. I will not let anyone stand in the way of true and proper worship to the one who created them and made them. You see, the reason that they chose this spot is because they looked just like the fig tree. They had a fruitless faith. They had a fruitless faith. Because if they had genuine faith, they would have set up outside of the courts. But they set up in the courts because they're not concerned about impacting the people around them. This is the reason that sinners and tax collectors were being rejected instead of reached. This is the reason that orphans and widows went uncared for. This is the reason that people in prison were being forgotten, that women and children were treated like objects. This is the reason that people who were far from God were being kept from God, because there were people who were supposed to represent God who had a fruitless faith, and it got in the way of people who wanted to know God really. And so Jesus flips over tables, and he drives people out. And he says, this is not the way that it should be, and this is not the way that it's going to be. Now, many of you have heard this story before. I have as well. I've read it multiple times, but there was an interesting detail in verse 16 that I hadn't seen before. It says this: on reaching Jerusalem, Jesus entered the temple courts, like we just talked about. He began driving out those who were buying and selling there, okay? He overturned the tables of the money changers and the benches of those selling doves, but this is the part I hadn't seen, and would not allow anyone to carry merchandise through the temple courts anymore. He shut it all down. You see, not only did he drive them out, he kept them out. He pushed them away. Why? He says, because you forgot that it is written, my house will be called a house of prayer for who? Who? All nations. Not a house of prayer just for the Jewish person. Remember the promise that God made to Abraham, that you'd be a blessing to all nations. And here they are, set up in the way of all nations being able to experience the presence of God, of all nations being able to worship him, of all nations being able to turn their heart's attention and their heart's affection and their mind's attention towards him. And so for a moment, a short moment, Jesus not only kicks them out, but he restores what it was supposed to be. I'm not just kicking them out, I'm keeping them out. So for at least today, the temple will function the way that it was intended to. And those who are far from God get to have access again. Now, here's what I love about this moment. Jesus didn't show up and go, this is your fault. Jesus didn't show up and go, guys, come over here. I can't believe they act that way. They're so ridiculous. Jesus didn't show up and go, oh, this isn't how it's supposed to work. Let me go cast my ballot real quick and get you to fix it. No, Jesus didn't show up and go, this is someone else's problem, it needs to be fixed. Jesus shows up and goes, that's not the way it's supposed to be, and I won't stand for it. I'm getting involved. I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to make a difference. I'm going to fix the order. I'm going to restore things back to the way that they were intended to be. A few years ago, there was a t-shirt brand that got really popular in Atlanta. It was called the We brand. Took a famous quote. Senator John Lewis has said it. Barack Obama has said it. It was used often during the civil rights movement. But the quote was this: we are the ones we are waiting for. We're the ones we're waiting for. There's no one else coming. It's us. No one else is going to feed the poor if we aren't. No one else is going to foster kids in the system if we aren't. No one else is going to fight for the lonely if we aren't. No one else is going to stand for the broken if we aren't. No one else is going to show up for our schools and our neighbors and our city if we aren't. No one else is going to bring the hope of Jesus to the world if we are not. We are the ones we are waiting for. Friends, it is time that we stop standing in the courtyards watching, going, I can't believe it's that way. And the church gets involved and goes, I'm going to do something about it. It's time that we stop standing on the sidelines going, this is so broken. And we get in the middle of the mess and we become a part of the restoration. It's time that we stop waiting for someone else to solve the problem that Jesus has sent you to fix. Might I suggest to you that the emotions that you feel around certain things are there because God is calling you to do something about it? Your anger isn't for the point of being angry. Your anger is supposed to lead you to do something. It's supposed to lead you to action. So Jesus shows up and he whips over tables, pushes people out of the market. He restores what the temple was supposed to be for that day, but the story doesn't end there. It continues on. Verse 18. The chief priests and the teachers of the law heard that and began looking for ways to kill him, for they feared him, because the whole crowd was amazed by his teaching. When evening came, Jesus and his disciples went out of the city, and in the morning as they went along, they saw the fig tree withered from the roots. And Peter remembered and said, Jesus, Rabbi, look, the fig tree that you cursed is withered. And Jesus goes, you noticed. You thought I didn't know that you heard me. I knew you heard me. I'm glad you brought it up. And he uses this moment to finish the object lesson that he started with. Starts with the tree, moves into the city. Now they're back at the tree, and he's going to finish the point. Verse 22 says this. Have faith in God, Jesus answered. Truly I tell you, if anyone says to this mountain, go, throw yourself in the sea, and does not doubt in their heart, but believes that what they say will happen, it will be done for them. Jesus' response to his disciples is, hey, I know you see that the tree is withered. I know you saw what happened in the temple. Well, let's put it all together for a minute. He goes, I wasn't hangry. I was angry because people were not showing up with the faith that they were supposed to have. They weren't showing up with the belief that was necessary to make a difference. They did not really walk with God. They had the appearance and everything looked good, but they did not really know him. And he goes, so what's the point of the tree? What's the point of the temple? It's simply this. I want you to have real faith. I want you to have real belief. I want you to not doubt. I want you to trust God. I want you to believe. Friends, hear me. Righteous anger does not start with hurt. That's human anger. Righteous anger starts with belief. What do you believe? Do you believe that God is in control? Do you believe that he knows what's best? Do you believe that his picture for the world is good and that he is trustworthy? And have you aligned your beliefs to his truth? Do you believe what he believes about the image of God being placed on every single human being and every person being worthy of dignity and love? Do you believe what he believes about women and children and the need to protect and fight for them? Do you believe what he believes about the sanctity of marriage? Do you believe what he believes about human life? Do you believe what he believes about the brokenness in the world? Do you believe what he believes about nature and the need to take care of it? Do you believe what he believes about the issues that we are faced with 24/7? You turn on the news and everyone tells you what to think. And we will believe what they say before we believe what he says. And Jesus goes, you want real faith? Believe in me. Trust me. Follow me. Live your life according to my truth, not their truth or your truth, mine. He goes, righteous anger, no, it doesn't start with you getting hurt by someone. It doesn't start with your opinion. It starts with your belief in me. What do you believe? What do you believe? Because if you believe the things that God has called you to believe about each other, then when you see someone mistreated, you know what it makes you? Angry. When you see someone who's being robbed of their dignity and value, it makes you angry. When you see someone who is living life less than what God intended for them, it makes you angry. When you see a broken world that is desperate for restoration and hope, it causes this emotion of anger in you. But the danger is that when we as Christians have this belief that leads to anger and then it causes us to retaliate, we end up holding picket signs instead of loving. We end up yelling at our neighbor instead of pursuing our neighbor. And so not only do we have to replace hurt with belief, we also have to replace this nature to retaliate. We have to allow the Holy Spirit in us to move us from retaliation to restoration. Friends, this is righteous anger. Human anger says, you hurt me, I'm angry, I get even. I retaliate. But a righteous anger, it says, I have some beliefs about what God says is true about you. I have some beliefs about what God says is true about them. I have some beliefs about the way that our world is supposed to work together. I know that sin has corrupted our world, but I also know that I'm an ambassador of the kingdom of heaven, and it is my job to bring little pieces of heaven to earth. Everywhere I walk into a room, a part of heaven should come with me. I have some beliefs. And when I see that the way that God intended the world to work, the way that God intended us to interact with each other, the way that God intended people to be treated is not showing up in spaces, then it makes me angry, and it leads me to want to restore it to what it should be. Not to get even, not to point a finger, not to yell, blame, or get angry, but it leads me to want to restore and fight for the ideal instead of settling for what's real. Restoration is the goal, not retaliation. And we have been called to be a people of restoration. Now, how does that happen? Like, what does that actually look like? Well, Jesus ends by saying this to his disciples. He says, therefore I tell you, whatever you ask for I couldn't hear you. Whatever you ask for in prayer, Believe that you have received it, and it will be yours. And when you stand praying, if you hold anything against anyone, forgive them, so that your Father in heaven may forgive your sins as well. Jesus gives us two really practical ways to see restoration take place in our world. He goes, have faith, replace your hurt with belief, fight for restoration, and here's how that restoration occurs. The path to restoration is prayer and care. I like that because it rhymes. It's prayer, it's care. Hey, you want to see things change? Pray. You want to see families restored? Pray. You want to see war end? Pray. You want to see children taken care of? Pray. Because you know where it starts? Prayer. Here's why. Because prayer is a marker of dependency on God. Prayer is the way that you say, not only do I believe in your ideal, I believe that you're the only one who's capable of making that ideal happen. Prayer says, I depend on you. So the path to restoration starts not with us, it starts with us depending on him. Prayer. But then he also says care. Hey, when you're praying, if you have an issue with someone, if you notice that there's something unsettled in your spirit, he goes, stop praying and go deal with it. Go care for that person. Go apologize to that person. Go make it right with that person. Go do something. Care enough, hear me, care enough to stop looking spiritual and actually go be spiritual. Care enough to stop looking holy and acting the parts that you look set apart to the rest of the world, and actually go be set apart by doing the thing that no one else is willing to do. Apologize, forgive, love, care. The path to restoration is prayer and care. I wonder what our world would look like if Christians spent less time arguing and more time praying and caring for each other. I wonder what our communities would look like if we were committed to being a people of prayer and care. I wonder what your life would look like if you spent your time praying for the things that you want to see change in the world and caring enough to do something about it. So can I ask you, what are you praying for right now? Where are you asking God to intervene? What brokenness in the world are you pleading for God to show up and do something about? What issue or thing is driving you to your knees? And if there is nothing there, you should start praying that God would break your heart for what breaks his. That you would be angry about the things that make him angry. What are you praying for right now? And who are you caring for right now? Who's getting the benefit of your time that cannot benefit you? What are you giving to that cannot give back to you? Who are you offering the love, the grace, and the forgiveness that Jesus has offered to you? How are you using your finances to make a difference in someone else's life? How are you participating in the restoration of people and places in the world? I'm telling you, the world will not look like heaven, but parts of it can when we show up and we replace our anger, our hurt, our need to retaliate with a belief in God and a desire to see his kingdom come and fight for restoration in the world. Henry Ward Beecher said this week, and it convicted the mess out of me, so good luck. Here's what he said. Well, he didn't say it this week. He died in the 1800s, but I read it this week. It's good. A man who does not know how to be angry does not know how to be good. And a man that does not know, this is so good, how to be shaken to its heart's core with indignation over the things that are evil is either a fungus or a wicked man. If there's nothing that stirs your heart the way that God's heart is stirred, if there's nothing that makes you go, it's not supposed to be that way and I'm going to do something about it, if there's nothing in you that gets riled up when you see evil in the world, it's time for a heart check, friends. Because our heart should care for the things that God's hearts care for. And we should be angry about the things that make him angry. You see, there's a difference between human anger and righteous anger. Human anger is when your anger is driven by your hurt and it leads you to retaliate. But righteous anger is when your anger is driven by your beliefs and it leads you to pray for and move towards restoration in the world. When we are fueled by human anger, we post. When we are fueled by righteous anger, we pray. When we are fueled by human anger, we blame. When we are fueled by righteous anger, we take action. When we are fueled by human anger, we cancel people, but when we are fueled by righteous anger, we restore people. When we are fueled by human anger, we demand justice for ourselves, but when we are fueled by righteous anger, we demand justice for others. When we are fueled by human anger, we hold grudges. But when we are fueled by righteous anger, we offer forgiveness. Which anger is representing your life right now? And if it's righteous anger, what are you doing that shows it? Because anger will lead us to be against people, but righteous anger will lead us to fight for people. Y'all, can I tell you what I love about being a part of our church? Like, if I was not pastoring this church, I would figure out another job and I would attend this church. I'll tell you what I love about this church is that for the last 4 years, I have watched you fight for people. And the thing that I think is so beautiful about you guys is you don't wait until there's some news report that's like, this is an issue, so we should do something. You're not waiting for someone else to go, oh, this is a big deal, now care about it. What I love about this church is that you have been a people who have gone, oh, there's orphans, let's take care of them. There's widows, let's take care of them. Let's go cut their grass. There's families who are struggling, let's sacrifice. Let's show up on a Sunday. Let's give of what we have that we might serve them. What I love about our church is for the last 4 years, I've watched you before people, and I just want to give you some pictures of what that looked like. I've watched you before the church because you have seen a need for discipleship and for a genuine, fruitful faith. And because of that, over the last 4 years, 352 people have completed membership at our church. 333 students have attended camp, many of which, have felt called to ministry and got involved. 62 people have been baptized in our church. And this year, we completed a building in the heart of our city for the goal to reach people who are far from God. And can I just tell you, on the outside, it's like, oh, cool, we built an event space. When I sat in my office with a lady who came to sell me ads in her magazine, who me and Colette got a chance to pray for, and she walked out crying and said, I think God had me here for a different reason. I'm telling y'all, it's not just a building. And it's not just for events. It's the movement of the gospel. It is discipleship in its purest form. You have been for the church. I've watched you before our city for Roswell because you have seen that there were people who needed to be loved and cared for in our city over the last 4 years at our church. This is insane. 18,508 hours served just on 4 days alone. 3,450 families served, 1,900 backpacks given away, 1,400 Christmas presents given, 903 winter jackets, 45 salvations in our Spanish service last year. You have been for our city. And because you have seen that the good news needs to get to every nation, to all parts of the world, you've helped plant 4 churches, and in those 4 churches, 1,286 people have put their faith in Jesus over the last 4 years. You've given $65,000 away to mission partners in Zambia, in Lebanon, and the Dominican Republic. And we've sent 138 people out on mission trips over the last 4 years from an elementary school cafeteria. I've seen you before, people. Asked Gabby as she was putting the book together, I said, I'd just be curious to know, like, if you took all the things that we've done over the last 4 years and put them together, how many people have we been able to impact as a church? This should blow your mind. If it doesn't blow your mind, act like it did, because it blew mine. 65,077 people impacted through missions and services and events over the last 4 years. 65,000 people. You have been for our church, for our city, for the world. But we're not done yet. You see, the goal in 2026 is that we would be more for than we've ever been before. Now, I want to clarify what I mean by that. As the way that I'm wired as like a builder, an entrepreneur, as a starter, I get excited about doing a new thing. Oh, let's build a building. Let's go over here. Let's start another camp. It's like I get excited about the new thing. And what God has been working in my heart for this year is I want you to be excited about the now thing. Let's keep doing what we're doing, but let's do it better than we've ever done it. Let's go deeper, not wider. Let's be more for than we've ever been before. So what is that going to look like? For the church, we're going to keep sending kids to camp. We're going to start a men and women's conference for our church. We're already doing men and women's Bible studies. We want to invest deeper into those relationships. I've been reading this study. It takes 200 hours to build deep, meaningful friendship. Let's expedite those hours. And let's build a real deep community. We're going to write a discipleship book for next year. This is so fun. I'm so excited about this. Next year, we're going to be in the book of Matthew for the entirety of the year. We're going to cover almost every single verse in the book of Matthew through devotionals, through sermons, through 4-day, through Monday motivations. There's going to be all sorts of different ways that you get the content, but we're going to be in the book of Matthew for the year. And so we're going to create a book for you to walk through, to do daily devotionals with the Lord, to unpack the scriptures, and to really learn to see the beauty of Jesus. Our young adult ministry has been like a thing that we didn't try to start, that just started. 40 to 50 to 60 young adults showing up once a month right now. We're going to put some gas on that, and we're going to invest in these young adults who are finding community and who are falling in love with Jesus. Theological training that we've been doing through BTCL and through Foundations, we're just going to do more of that. So we're going to be more for the church. We're going to be more for Roswell. Next week, I'm going to talk about the revamp of 4-day. Y'all, I am fired up about this. 4-day has been living in its first iteration for the last 4 years. We're now moving to iteration number 2, and we're going to get to be more for people. 10 new projects coming, haircuts coming for families every week, warehouse that has started that allowed clothing for people. We are going to be able to reach and serve and love more people through 4-day. We're going to expand our Spanish ministry, so we're going to hire a Spanish director or a pastoral apprentice that's bilingual to actually preach to and disciple our Spanish community as a part of our church, not as a separate other thing that we do. We're going to launch forroswell.org, which is going to be a website that's outward-facing, because every single week I get 2 to 5 phone calls. It's like, hey, can you help with rent? Hey, do you know where I can find food? Hey, do you know where I can find diapers? And we want to be able to create a resource that partners with all of the nonprofits in our area to point them to the places that they can get the help that they need for the sake of the gospel. We're going to be more for the world. We're going to plant another church this year. That'll be the 5th one that we've planted in 4 years as a church. Somebody better say amen to that. And we're going to send 100 adults on missions across the world. That's what we're going to do in 2026. But we cannot do that without you. So here's what it looks like. And band, you guys can go ahead and come up as I close. The goal for this year, that's wrong, $331,500 is the goal for this year. We talked about this as a staff. And I said to our staff, I will not stand in front of our church and ask them to do something that we're unwilling to do first. So 100% of our staff have already given. We're all in, Kylie and I included. And so we want to ask you to partner with us in giving so that we can be more for than we've ever been before. We want to send 100 adults on mission trips. We would like to see 125 new volunteers serving in ministry areas in the church, and 150 people go through pathways to become members of our church. So 6 things I want to ask you to do over the next 3 weeks. Number 1, commit. If you've not become a member of Home Church yet, we want you to go through pathways. You can do that this November and become a member of this house, be a member of this body, and to help us be more for than we've ever been before. We want you to regularly attend a Bible study. If you have gone through pathways and you are not in a Bible study and you're not showing up every week, show up every week and get more involved. We want you to commit. We want to ask you to give. On November the 9th, we're going to ask you to bring back this card. There's a little card on your seat that says Heart for the House. And we're going to ask everyone to show up with this commitment card. We're going to close Heart for the House giving on December the 6th. So you have until December the 6th to give your gift. But we want to ask everyone to show up and commit together on November the 9th. Now, if you want to give on the 9th, you can do that. We're going to ask that everyone doesn't do it before the 9th. Unless you're going to be out of town and you know you can't be here, you can give early. But we want to ask everyone to give on the 9th or between the 9th and December the 6th. But on the 9th, everyone's going to bring their commitment cards. And we're going to give together towards that $331,000 so that we can be more for than we've ever been before. We're going to ask if you're a member of our church or if you're regularly attending, that you would automate your giving. That helps us to plan and prepare as we look to 2026. We're going to ask that you would serve at Home Church on a regular basis. We need more people involved in order for us to do the ministry that God has called us to do. 125 of you to get involved there. And we're going to ask that every person would consider going on a mission trip this year. This is the ask, that you would commit, that you would give, that you would serve, that we might be more for than we've ever been before. Now, I don't know what you see when you see that. Like maybe you see just numbers on a page. Maybe you see like a well-put-together fundraising campaign. Maybe you see the church wants my money. I don't know what you see when you see that. Can I tell you what I see, though? Would that be okay? Can I close with that? I'm not going to tell you unless I have your permission. Can I tell you what I see when I see that? I see Jesus in front of a fig tree going, it's not supposed to be this way. And so I'm going to do whatever it takes to make sure it never happens again. Fruitless faith, not on my watch. I'm going to give my all. The curse of sin, not on my watch. I'll take that curse on me. I see Jesus standing in front of the tree saying it's not supposed to be that way and never again. You know what else I see? I see Todd and Jenny Walker standing in front of the tree of cancer, going, children who have been impacted by cancer should not be living in isolation, and their parents shouldn't have to walk alone. So we're going to lead the Lighthouse mission trip every single summer because it's not supposed to be that way, and never is it going to happen again on our watch. That's what I see. I see Brooke Foxman, who looks in her closet and goes, I have all of these clothes that are just sitting here. I don't wear any of them. And we have families who are struggling to figure out what to wear for an interview. It's not supposed to be that way. Never again on my watch. I'm going to give everything I have. You know what I see? I see Sue Ellen Moody going, there should not be kids who are orphaned and don't have access to education. So I'm going to start a nonprofit for kids in Zambia. It's not supposed to be that way. Never again on my watch. What I see is Taylor Nettles, who was the first person baptized in our church, one of our first staff members at our church, who spends time on her weekends going in front of the tree of sex trafficking and go, it's not supposed to be that way. You will not take their dignity. Never again on my watch. What I see when I see that are the resources that will allow my little girls to figure out what is the tree that God says is not supposed to be there, and I'm going to figure out what I'm going to do about it. And I'm going to make a difference. So what I see when I see that is not a fundraising goal. What I see when I see that are the resources for the church to find the trees that are poisoning our world and go, never again, not on my watch. It ends today, and it ends with me. We will be more for than we've ever been before. God is going to move in his city, in his church, and in the world, and here's the deal. He's going to do it with or without you, so are you going to be a part or not? And as for me and my house, we're in. What about you? So let me just ask you this. What makes you angry? What do you see in the world that you go, it's not supposed to be that way, and never again on my watch? And how often are you praying for it right now? Are you inviting God to intervene and to fight to make things right again? And what are you going to do about it?
You're listening to audio from Home Church Roswell, located in Roswell, Georgia. For more information about this ministry or to give to this ministry, please visit homechurchroswell.com.